Welcome back to FreightWaves Now on this Wednesday morning. It's the day that we preview our show all about content marketing in the internet sphere, Cyberly.
That's right. Miss Blythe Brumleve is with us to give us an update on her show. Blythe, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
So if you didn't catch the episode last week, of course, it was great. And this week's episode, talking all about making data actionable. What does that really mean? Just, you've got all this data, what do you do with it?
Well, I think for me personally, I speak from experience working at a 3PL where I had access to all of the TMS data, but I wasn't really sure as a marketer how I could use that. So we've got a couple guests coming on the show that are going to actually help clear the air about how we can use some TMS data in the future as far as making that data actionable, because we all know it's great to compile all of this information, but if we're not making it actionable, we're not helping our CEOs and our executive teams understand what it means to be a marketer, then we're ultimately going to fail at our job.
Blythe, I'm sure your guests are going to give some good advice there, but what is your advice? What would you suggest to, just some of the things that you've used in your past life about how to make data more actionable?
I think it's redefining what is actually valuable when it comes to marketing data. I think for a lot of us, especially over the past, especially for me, I've always put the credence in, well, how many ebook downloads did we get on the website? How many contact forms were submitted? And contact forms are great. They're the ultimate level of somebody saying that, hey, I'm reaching out to you and I want a sales rep, or I want somebody to contact me back about doing business with you or possibly doing business with you. But when someone downloads an ebook, in the past, marketers have treated those as leads, and then we hand them off to the sales team. And the sales team gets frustrated because buyers are trying to look for information. They're not necessarily looking to start a buying conversation. And so we hand those leads off to the sales team, and the sales team gets frustrated and they tell us how crappy these leads are. And then as marketers, we're really only judged by that metric. So it's really about going a little bit deeper about qualifying what is a sales qualified opportunity, not necessarily somebody who's just looking for information.
So Blythe, part of your responsibility as a marketer, like you said, isn't just getting those people to buy in or to gain some interest in what your product is and what you're trying to sell. It's also giving them that information that they're requesting. Let's take a step back when it comes to actually gathering that information. How do you go from retaining all of this data and sussing out what is the most important, 1, 2, 3 bullet points that my interested people want to hear about? What is kind of the decision-making process that gets you down from all of this data that's in your hands to what really, really matters for your clients?
It's really about having customer interviews. This is something that I didn't really prioritize early on in my career, but as of as of the last few years, it's been something that I have prioritized, because that's where you get all of the nuggets of information that really crafts every part of your website copy, of your email copy, of social media advertising. And that's having those in-depth customer interviews, not just once, but on a regular basis, sometimes monthly, quarterly basis. You should be having these conversations with customers who bought and customers who didn't buy. So then that way you have a greater understanding of the problems that they're experiencing. And one tip that I love to give out to a bunch of different business owners is that to start a lingo library Google document. It's just a Google Doc or a Word doc, whatever platform you like to use. And that lingo library, you can use the exact phrases that you hear from your customers, either on a sales call or even on, after an onboarding call. Capture that lingo that they are using exactly and put it in that lingo document, because then that will help craft your future marketing messages in the future.
Blythe, I'm really glad you brought this point up. While I was in college, I had a bunch of classes on design thinking. We learned a lot about empathetic interviewing and learning about problems for eventually to develop solutions and products for those problems. Tell me about what are some of the things that you look for in those conversations? How do you approach the conversations, and what kind of questions do you ask to get the most info out of those customers?
It's really starting with empathy. It's finding out what was that exact trigger point that caused someone to reach out to us finally and book a demo or to set up a sales call. It's finding out those moments, because I heard some great advice recently. It's don't sell me a bed, sell me that I can wake up on time, get that workout in, and be the person that I want to aspire to be. And that's really where the ethos of the marketing messages that you want to find out. And you only find those out while you're having those conversations. So asking open-ended questions, finding out what those trigger moments were for the customer before they picked up the phone and decided to attempt to do business with you, and finding out those things, adding that information to your lingo library, that will really help craft your messages now and in the future.
So it's interesting coming from someone who has the journalism background, right? Like I've been taught to ask these empathetic, these open-ended questions my entire life to try and really dig into the point of the story. And seeing that translated into marketing and then translated down into sales is super, super important because it can be tough to get to those harder questions and to really dig in with some of the people that you're talking to. Blythe, do you feel like as a marketer, when you have these interviews, do you have any time constraints on you when you're talking to this person? Or is it kind of just this world is our oyster and we can go for however long possible to really dig into what you're wanting out of what I'm selling?
Well, I tried to position it as, hey, let's just hop on a call. There's no, I always have to preface it with, I'm not going to record this. I'm not going to broadcast this conversation anywhere. This is just a conversation like over coffee or over drinks that we're going to have for 20 to 30 minutes. And what a lot of times you'll find is that you start talking to them, they start opening up a little bit more. It does take longer than say, let's hop on a 15-minute call. It takes a little bit longer to get to the meat and potatoes of what you're trying to get out of them, but it's also it's an interview that you never intend to broadcast. And so I think as long as the customer or even the potential customer knows that that is the angle that you're going after, it's almost like a mini interview, but you position it as a chat with a friend. And that's how I like to approach it, because I think that that's where you get the majority of the things that you're looking for. And the customer knows that if you're trying to better understand their journey, then hopefully that can lead to product improvements, service improvements. You can find out not only your strengths, but your weaknesses too, as a business, on how you can better tackle those problems down the line and even add it to your workflows in the future.
Blythe, a lot of great information today. Thank you so much for joining us. Where should everybody go to learn more about you, and where should they go to find more about Cyberly?
You can find more about Cyberly by watching live right here on FreightWaves from 2 to 3 p.m. every Thursday. And then if you want to find more about me, just hit up my website at digitaldispatch.io.